What's going on again, people? This is gonna be another part to the other video that I just, you know, I just made, and the reason why I cut that video short and I have it be like this whole 15-minute, 30-minute video, because I think it's too long to explain what was going on. And I think I had taken that video twice. I had shot that video twice before throwing it up there. I shot the video. Once it went almost to 9 minutes, and I said, let me try to shorten the time down because this really don't take that much to explain. And I almost hit that 8 minute mark again with the next video. So I said, cut it off right there, just release it. It doesn't need much explanation. Now I'm back again, just to explain my my initial thoughts on Sonic being back at 60 frames per second, not 60 frames, 30 frames per second on Switch, and now I'm just ready to go ahead and just give my opinion on the game. Now, again, like I said, I didn't want the video going on too long. It didn't need that much. I'm talking about my boss now. It didn't take that much. It don't need that much explaining to do just to explain my it basically needs a 5 minute video just to explain what was going on, just be straight to the point with it and just keep it going. But now I'm here to express my opinions about Sonic Forces on Switch being 30 frames per second, 720p. Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't give a fuck about resolution. As long as the game looks great and it's still playing, it's playing well, that's all I care. So I don't really give a fuck about resolution. So I'm gonna leave it at that for 720p. When it comes to 30 frames per second, I gotta humble myself. As a Sonic fan, I'm not gonna sit here and just jack my dick off to 60 frames per second because, as we all remember, the best two Sonic games of last generation was at 30 frames per second, and nobody batted an eye. Even though the Wii U came out and Sonic Lost World was at 60 frames per second, I heard somebody say it was 30 frames per second, but no, if you actually played Sonic Lost World, it was actually at 60 frames per second. It was a buttery smooth 60 frames per second at that. But it also was a slower paced game if you actually think about it. But when you look at these two games right here, the games they just chose to advertise when they said from the creators of these two games, 30 frames per second didn't bother me because I had fun with these two games, and these are what I call Sonic games. Rather it's 30 frames to 60 frames per second. Those frame rates, frame rates doesn't bother me as much because as long as my game is consistently smooth, I am okay with the game. And as long as I can't barely tell the difference. Besides, they said the control is going to be at like 60 frames per second. I'm okay with 30 frames per second. I don't understand why people all of a sudden got this notion that 30 frames per second is unplayable. Oh. In most of the games of this generation, it's not even 60 frames per second. Like, that's dead on serious. Like, a lot of these games these days, even the fast-paced games like Overwatch and such, are not, 60 frames per second. They feel like it, but they're not. And that's what Sonic Forces aims at doing on the Switch. Even though the game is not going to be at 60 frames per second, they want it to feel like it's at 60 frames per second. That's why the controller at 60 frames per second. And I think that's the best I can actually sum it up. So I'm not gonna scarf at 60 frames per second, not 60 frames, but 30 frames per second because I already played games at 30 frames per second, and if I can play those games at 30 frames per second, why should another 30 frames per second game, bother me? Like, for real, like, come on now, people, let's be mature about this. 30 frames per second is not unplayable; it's very playable. You have a lot of games that some of the best games are at 30 frames per second, not always at 60 frames per second. But again, the game is being rushed. That kind of got me worried. That's my worry part. They're basically telling me that this game is also being rushed, but at the same time, I said I want this game on my Switch because I want to take this game with me. That's the only reason I'm buying it for the Switch. If I really was that big of a graphic core and stuff like that, I was saying, 30 frames per second is out the way, man. I need my 1080p 60 frames per second. I don't care what year it is. I don't care what decade, whatever year you try to put it is. It's this year. This should be what it is. I don't give a fuck. As long as my game is good, playable, stable, I'm okay. That is my main draw to the whole 60 versus 30 frames per second thing. And it doesn't matter if it's 60 or 30, as long as it's good, it's playing constantly. I have no hiccups with the game. That's okay, and that's all right with me. And that's all I need to know. Again, I was buying this game because I really love Sonic, and I really want to take this game with me. And the fact that I don't have a Switch, I'm not getting one to Christmas. That's a guaranteed now. Thanks to my thanks to my smart tactics of putting one on layaway for Christmas season. Um, I just want to be honest with you guys, man, and it killed me when Sonic Mania came out because I have it on Xbox One, and I really was at work when I was thinking about it. I was just thinking about playing that game more when I was at work. I was losing focus at work, just thinking about Sonic Mania. I said, man, if I could just have this game with me, I could go to the back and get my Switch out and just start playing my game right down the back, man. Just have fun, man, at work, man. Freak that. That man, and that's just how I feel. That's how I'm gonna feel with Sonic Mania. That's Sonic Mania, Sonic Forces. I like Sonic. I love the games, and I really want to play this game when it comes out. It's one of the games that I'm most worried about, but I also want this game on my Switch, man. It's gonna be a nice addition to my Switch library when I start building up, man. So far, the games I got with my Switch on layaway is, uh, yeah, I just put it on layaway just to reserve me one because this holiday season, let's be honest, it's gonna be phased out. I got Splatoon, Dragon Ball. I'm going straight up buy Mario and bring that home with me, so I can go have that ready. So yeah, and Sonic Forces, no exception. I'm straight up buy that game and just bring it home with me, so I'll go ahead and have that game on standby, including ARMS. So yeah, it's your boy Kahuna. I'm signing out, and again, 30 frames per second is well okay. It's playable. Do not be a graphic whore or a frame rate whore that's saying 30 frames per second is unplayable, because that is not true. It's well playable. It's nice. It's constant, and it's good. Don't worry about the guys who are just want to be whores all of a sudden. Deuces.